a celebration by the congregation. And the congregation should also feel that there's life. That's joy that they're a part of this service. It's important that they don't just sit there but take part, and that they show their joy or charisma. I know several Germans who come to us regularly. Last week I spoke to a woman who told me that they were really inspired by the service and they were coming back next Sunday. But not only visitors from other countries come regularly, and they say that was somehow different. That was deep, real. And we try to convey this sense of community, and we feel it too.
Das ist herrlich, das ist tief, warm, und diese Gemeinschaft, das versuchen wir auch zu vermitteln, und das spüren die auch.
A service in which you can tell it's the joy of Easter which unites the people here. The congregation here is more than just a random collection of listeners in the pews. That's precisely the attraction for the German visitors.
Was die deutsche Kirche von uns
What the German churches could learn from us is perhaps this joy and spontaneity.
Spontanität.
After the service, there's something to eat in the church hall. And that's cooked the way people are used to it from home.
Und die feiern nicht nur den Gottesdienst, sondern das Leben. Und das Leben ist nicht nur die Messe, sondern auch.
And they don't just celebrate in the worship service, they celebrate life. And life's not only Mass, it's also the warm fellowship that takes place afterwards. And that's then spontaneous and always involves food. And this church is also bound together by this day, a Sunday. They stay perhaps 1, 2 or 3 hours, but we support their lives. And quite a few are happy when once a week they get a feeling of home and can share their worries and their lives with other people.
Andere Leute auch ihre Sorgen und auch ihre Leben teilen.
In the church building, there's even a special shop for Philippine products that you can't buy anywhere else.
Das ist nicht irgendein Einkaufsladen, das ist ein Projekt unserer Gemeinde.
That's not just any old shop. That's a project by our church. And through it, we want to support projects in the Philippines as well. That means we have this small Philippine shop in order to, as I said, support projects in the Philippines. And recently, we've supported projects in various churches and also helped street children. That means these projects are supported by the generosity of the Filipinos living here.
Eine Pfarrei in Banawe. Das heißt, diese Projekte werden auch durch die Großzügigkeit der Filipinos unterstützt worden.
Darüber habe ich in letzter Zeit auch viel nachgedacht, selbst wenn man unsere Gemeinde hier sieht. Wir sind ja überhaupt kein sozialer Brennpunkt. Aber wie viele Menschen hierher kommen mit einem Gesicht, dass man denken könnte, meine Güte, die tragen das Leid der Welt.
A home group of the German church in the church building. Father Adonis leads it. So at this level as well, there's integration between the two churches. For many, this is a chance to examine their own faith through the mirror of another culture.
I didn't come to Germany as a missionary to bring Germans to Christ. We've had a foundation of faith for years, and I'm here as a missionary to share the richness of my faith. For me, as a divine word missionary, that's the main thing.
Als steiler Missionar sehr wesentlich.
Ausländerseelsorge, das machen Pater Adonis und Pater Willi deutlich.
Pastoral care for foreigners, as Father Adonis and Father Willi make clear, is also an opportunity for the German Church. A spur to let oneself be inspired by the way others live out their faith. That in particular, the divine word missionaries, with their international character, see themselves as particularly called here, is clear. We're looking forward to seeing you again. Till then, may the Lord's blessings go with you.
Bis dahin, eine gesegnete Zeit. Grüß Gott und herzlich willkommen zu Grenzenlos.
Hello and a warm welcome to the second broadcast of Limitless. What does a philosopher actually do in his free time? Read even more books? Discuss? Look at the world astutely, perhaps? In today's program, we'd like to introduce you to a philosopher who spends his free time on a rubbish tip. Not because the refuse of society inspires him to deep and meaningful thought, but because he's found people there who interest him. Garbage people. The German professor, Karl-Heinz Kuhleke, has even lived for a time on a rubbish dump. Why? That's what we want to show you today.
Cebu, one of the bigger islands in the Philippines. For those in the know, a holidaymaker's paradise with great tourist potential. The refuse of the metropolis ends up here, one of the 3 rubbish dumps on the island. For 3,000 men, women and children, the garbage tip is their home. They work here, sleep here, give birth to their children here. In the sweltering heat, they poke around for reusable materials, which they then sell for a pittance to recycling firms. Paper, plastic, metal. Material they use to make their homes. Huts made of garbage as a refuge for families that have found work and support nowhere else. Absolute poverty has driven them to the rubbish dump.
The people come from neighboring islands, from other slums in the city that have either been demolished or dismantled, or even from the neighboring islands where the economic situation is far worse than on Cebu. In many cases, small farmers who know that relatives of theirs live and work here on the rubbish dump.
When Professor Heinz Kuhleke discovered the settlement more than 15 years ago, he was shocked. Undying smoke clouds surrounded the huts. Poisonous fumes that lead to illness. The eyes of the inhabitants are red. Many have lung diseases. Children get themselves dangerous burns in the piles of burning rubbish. Sometimes the little ones are bitten by rats. Another of the ever-present dangers of the rubbish dump is the heavy equipment of the refuse companies. Bulldozers and garbage trucks cannot see children. 40 dead children were recorded in just 1 year. Even during filming, we were witnesses of the catastrophic conditions. It's just 2 hours ago that a 12-year-old boy was run over here. They've piled up 4 tons where a child has just been squashed.
He had no chance. The wheels went straight over his head. When I speak to the people here about the subjects we normally speak about, it's totally impossible, because everyone is telling you about the accident, and everyone is talking about the shock the mother experienced. She was then called to identify her dead child.
Experiences such as these kept troubling the professor. Again and again he went to the rubbish dump. But what could he do?
So my first thought was simply that the people had to be helped. I tried to speak to people with the various authorities, but wherever I went I was turned away. I just realized that there was hardly any interest among the public and the city officials in helping these people, because officially they just didn't exist. That made me think that to find out more about the people, I have to first live and work with the people myself. And that's why I decided to just go to the rubbish dump, and then to live and work with the people. I stuck it out for a month here myself. That means working with the people during the day. Then I got a little hot here and gradually got used to being a garbage person.
He began, like them, to look through the refuse for anything recyclable. Even though they couldn't understand at first why the white man was there, after several days they accepted him. The professor became one of them, prepared to share everything with them, even the food from the garbage, even their diseases, even the rats.
To protect me from them, I'd been given a mosquito net with which I could cover myself at night. But even that didn't stop the rats from coming very, very close. I got a shock when the rats ran over the mosquito net, and then I was bitten by mosquitoes. And what we had here, these millipedes, which can be very, very poisonous, or little scorpions. Once I was bitten in the thigh. I couldn't wear proper trousers for several days. My thigh was so swollen that I had to wear short trousers. That's the sort of thing I experienced here during that time. But the most moving thing of all was the time with the people, the experiences which the people shared with me. The 4 weeks with the garbage people left a deep impression on him. For him, pitiful creatures have become friends. But after the 4 weeks, he had first to go into hospital. So physically weakened was he by the diseases of the rubbish dump. Professor Kuleke is not only an academic on Cebu, he's also a priest and a missionary. For him, the days on the rubbish tip were not to find himself, were not an experiment, but were an expression of his conviction to stand up for a just world. Today, 15 years after his 4 weeks on the rubbish tip, he still visits them regularly, always with his rucksack full of medicines.
Celine. The girl has been crippled ever since she was run over by a garbage truck. Pater Kuleke has been looking after her for years, supports her parents. As a student, the professor often worked in German hospitals. He gained a wealth of experience that's of great benefit to him with the garbage people. Like a family doctor, he's often doing the rounds for hours on ends. Why does he do it? His faith, he says, moves him to do it.
That's got something to do with my spirituality. I'm looking for God, and I believe I found him on the rubbish dump. The Christian message, the biblical message, speaks of a God whom we'll find among the poor. And that really is the case here at the rubbish dump. One of my favorite Gospels is the Gospel in Matthew chapter 25, where he speaks about the Last Judgment and identifies with the poor. And that's just so apparent here, particularly the presence of God in the children, who rummage around in the refuse themselves and have to help their families to survive. That's something which has greatly moved me. And also as a priest, what moves me a lot is the story in Luke chapter 10 about the Good Samaritan. Also a very real experience in my life, that I have very often walked past suffering people on the other side, and that I've found that here on the Philippines in various areas, that people just lie in the gutter, have to live at the rubbish dump, that many people just walk by on the other side. For me, that was a reason simply to stay here and be with the people, to tangibly experience what happens when I don't walk past on the other side. When I stand still. When I stand still, I experience God. I've done that here.
The priest didn't just stand still. He began systematically to do something for them. In a shed at the edge of the tip, he organizes a warm meal every day, food that the children don't first have to find in the rubbish. Gradually, the missionary began to take the children away from the garbage, putting them in schools and kindergartens. For the parents, the initiative by the German priest was no small sacrifice. For them, when a child no longer picks up rubbish, it initially means a loss of income. Nevertheless, they allowed it. for the professor, because he had become their friend. Only slowly did they understand why, even for the children, there can be no better future without a school education. Unusual scenes for a kindergarten is the children who used to live on the rubbish who are dancing in honor of the older ones, celebrating the completion of 3 years in kindergarten. Dressed as if going to a PhD award ceremony, the 6-year-olds will graduate from kindergarten today. Soon they'll be going to school, and when they work hard, perhaps some of them will go to university. Then they will have made it. They will no longer be garbage people, nameless on the bottom rung of society. A reason to celebrate. Above all, for Professor Kuleke, who, together with his colleagues, is awarding the prizes. And also for the parents, who follow the rise of their children as if spellbound. For them, a lot has changed since the day the priest came to live with them. A well. Drinking water that doesn't make you ill. This well was built by the people from the rubbish dump. The experience with the priest strengthened their self-confidence. With him by their side, they began to organize themselves. On a plot of land that the priest was able to buy with the help of donations from Germany, they have built a village for 80 families. The children who live here all go to school. There's a small pharmacy in the village, which is open for some of the time. Elected health committees organize mass examinations for the children. The priest's interest in them gave them the courage to seize control of their own destiny. Even if many of them still have to work on the rubbish dump, the conditions there have changed as well. There are no more children there. The fire is out forever. The deadly smoke has gone.
Was dem deutschen Missionar hier gelungen ist, soll bald auch auf den beiden.
What the German missionary has achieved here should soon be achieved at the other 2 dumps on the island as well, so that there too no more children are run over. The practical involvement of the missionary, as impressive as it is just one part of his battle for the people on the rubbish dump. The change has to start at the root of the problem, in the heads of the decision makers. And where could he better shape people's thinking than at a university?
The San Carlos University in the heart of Cebu. It's not only the oldest university on the Philippines. With 15,000 students, it's counted amongst the most esteemed institutions in the country, even today. The university is supported by the Order of Styler Missionaries. A good dozen priests live and teach at the university. Karl-Heinz Kuleke is their rector.
What I always emphasize in teaching philosophy is that philosophy is not just a mental exercise, but that philosophy has important implications for given political situations which we encounter in different parts of the world, particularly in the Philippines. As all of you, my dear students, know, the political situation at this point in time is not something that is acceptable to many of us. The Philippines, as such, as all of us know, is a very rich country, but it is not okay because we realize if you look at concrete local problems, as we see, for example, in Cebu, the situation of prostitution, scavengers, street people.
Professor Kuleke confronts his students not only with the great Western thinkers. For him, philosophy is the tool to change reality. The prostitutes, or the people on the rubbish dump, they provide the professor with examples to make it clear to the students that many structures in society are intolerable. The professor knows that his students, who belong to an elite, are those who will one day take over the leadership of the country.
The people suddenly realize that many of the structures in which we live, here also in the context of the Philippines, are just not acceptable structures. We want to gradually try to restructure things, and for that I need the help of the young people. because the future belongs to the young people. As a thinker, as a philosopher, as a teacher, I can give the people something to take with them. As good old Nietzsche said, that is my way, and where is your way, my dear students?
Es hat uns beeindruckt zu sehen, wie bei dem Professor das, was lehrt.
It's greatly impressed us to see how what the professor teaches and what he lives form one integrated whole. So we were all the more astonished when we saw that the lectures at the university and his involvement with the garbage people are only a part of his busy life. At night, he goes through the streets, gathers street children, and gives medical aid at the side of the street. And he goes where human rights are treated with particular contempt, to the red light district, where girls and women have to sell themselves for a few dollars. So as not to jeopardize his work, we've kept the camera at an appropriate distance.
Cebu by night, not far at all from the university, begins the red light district, a place where tourists and businessmen are looking for a quick bit of fun. Despite the warnings of his brothers in the order, the man of the cloth ventured into the maze of brothels.
We've got a whole lot of girls who are 12, 13, 14 years old. The oldest are 15 or 16. The younger the girls, the better, in the eyes of the pimps and brothel owners, they are for business. Many of the clients are afraid of AIDS and believe that with the younger girls, AIDS is not so bad, that it's not so common. But of course that, as we know, is not true.
A typical scene in front of a brothel. A taxi pulls up. The girls have to stand up. Like cattle, they're looked up and down in the headlight beams, selected as required. When Father Kulukis saw this, it was clear to him, something has got to happen here. When he appeared again and again in the red light district, the pimps and brothel owners didn't initially know what to make of him. Word quickly got around that he knew something about medicine. Several successfully treated cases got him well known in the scene. The brothel owners started to trust him. When he buried a pimp who'd been suffering from AIDS, more doors opened. In this underworld, where gambling, drugs, and child prostitution are the order of the day, Father Kulukis began to spin a net. After 5 years, he can move freely. Now he's allowed to talk to the girls, something which was previously prevented by force. More than 500 work here. Many are minors. He learns about the false promises with which they are lured to the island. Shocked, the girls realize that they won't be working as servants, but as prostitutes. For a few dollars, they're rented out in hotels which charge by the hour, have to sell themselves up to 15 times a night. But the girls are still in debt, because the pimps buy them clothing which is too expensive, and charge them a fortune for board and lodging, and the drugs they give them. This creates a system of dependency that destroys their chances of breaking out of prostitution.
I've noticed that a lot's changing by being in the red light district. The girls have someone they can talk to, a friend, a man in the red light district who doesn't want to use them. Many girls have poured out their hearts to me, told me their problems, have realized by my being there that here's someone who has a sincere interest in them. What they don't experience from the clients, from the pimps, the brothel owners, even don't experience from their own colleagues. Sincere interest in them as them. That's what's changed the girls in the red light district. That's something that I've noticed a lot. Interest in the girls has awoken in them an interest in themselves, where they've then really thought it over. Is this my life? Is there a way out?
Ist das wirklich mein Leben? Gibt es einen Ausstieg?
The trust, which Father Kulukis has laboriously built up over the years, is now bearing fruit. The pimps think a lot of his medical advice. For the man of the cloth, it's a chance to improve the girl's situation, at least a little bit.
Je länger die Mädchen krank sind, desto besser ist es.
The longer a girl's ill, the better. We've used that to give the girls a break.
Auch den Mädchen eine Ruhepause zu verschaffen. Ich bin wahrscheinlich in Cebu der einzige Priester, der meisten.
I'm probably the priest in Cebu who lies the most. Very, very often I've told the brothel owners that the girls are sick and that they're so ill that they can't work anymore, that they have sexually transmitted diseases that will certainly need to be treated for 2 weeks, and that the girl needs total rest so that she can be used again later. The pimps and brothel owners believe me.
Und das Ergebnis ist, dass die Zuhälter und Bordellbesitzer.
There are quite a few cases where the girl had to take a 2-week break, on my advice and with the agreement of the brothel owner. 2 weeks compulsory break also means then, please no drugs, otherwise the medication won't work, etc. And that means that the girl has 2 weeks to reflect. Many girls come back from this break totally changed and have seen other possibilities for their lives.
Zurückgekommen und haben andere Perspektiven gesehen.
Zunächst begann der Pater als Einzelkämpfer.
At first, the priest was battling on his own with no backup. Support from Germany soon allowed him to bring social workers into the project. The girl's situation is especially difficult if they become pregnant. That can hardly be avoided as they have to do without condoms to get a higher price, and other contraceptives are often not available to them. Having children for the girls in the brothels is often an additional disaster.
Ich habe etliche Kontakte mit Mädchen, die sind schwanger geworden im Alter von 14, im Alter von 15.
I've got several contacts to girls who became pregnant at 14 or 15. We've got one case where one girl has had 4 children from 4 different clients. We've got many cases of girls who've given birth and then have continued as prostitutes because they have to provide for the child. We had one girl. 5 days after the birth, she'd been forced back onto the street by her pimp. Because the birth in the hospital cost a lot of money, which was then billed to the girl, and the pimp wanted his money back as soon as possible.
Und der Zuhälter möglichst schnell und die Bordellbesitzerin möglichst schnell abbezahlt haben wollte.
Ja, man möchte schier verzweifeln ob solcher Zustände.
One may despair over such circumstances, but there are also those rays of hope which have also made us feel confident during our visit to Cebu. Projects which show that it really is possible to give these girls a second chance, to help them smile again, perhaps even to get back the youthfulness which has been stolen from them.
A house for the girls from the brothel, protected by a wall, protected from pimps and madams. Here they can not only have their children, they can also stay until there's a new future for them. You can see from the faces of the little ones that their fathers come from all over the world, punters who with their dollars forced the girls to do without condoms. Whether they had any idea that in doing so they were perhaps creating life? It's a miracle when you see how lovingly the girls accept their children nonetheless. Children who have been brutally forced upon them. A miracle too that they can laugh again. This place of protection came about on the initiative of Father Kuluke. Run by nuns, the homely atmosphere in the house can of course not hide the fact that the girls' wounds have not yet healed. Only gradually do girls like Marie Antonina begin to talk about the damage done to them, about brutal rapes that have traumatized them, about perverse punters who stubbed out cigarettes on their backs, male brute force, which would have almost destroyed them. A sketch, written by the girls, in an attempt to put their experiences into words. The weeks and months here have changed the girls, have shown them a new future, a new feeling of self-esteem that makes it easier for them to get off the game.
We've managed to get the girls to talk to each other. Together they simply discovered that they've all been deceived there and that they're all exploited. So gradually a certain solidarity arises among the girls.
Often too ashamed to go back to their own families, for the girls the priest has become almost like a father figure, perhaps a chance for them to learn again.